Sup Shredders, my name is Logan aka Spiderhands and welcome to an SP Reviews where today we have ourselves a track from an act named Bernd Bridges titled Coprophenomenon aka TikTik. And if we switch over to here, we have ourselves a track on the screen, the video here. I've got the English subtitles, I think it's also in German. We're gonna be listening through this track from start till finish and we're gonna hear what we think. Let's go. Ah, Tourette's. Gorgeous guitar lines, I love the melody on top.
He's standing tall. A Jackie was Tourette's, giving it all. Warrior to fire and climbing higher.
I love those synths and how they build that atmosphere up, make it sound really epic. The 80s aesthetic here is strong.
We're scarred of the past, refluting with fire. Coprophenomenon, Coprophenomenon.
Fantastic call and response here. I mean, like, it's such an uplifting sort of story. You instantly get the feel of who this person is. You want to feel sympathetic for them, but at the same time, it just sounds like they're kicking ass and taking names.
He's pure of heart, born in heart and marked up, never looking for a restart. Fighter to fire and soaring higher.
Really smooth sounding as well.
A star with a blast, he'll fuel your fire. He's a phenomenon.
And how those vocals soar with the legato feel there over top of the space, provided by the guitar, bass, and drums. Great sort of subtle 16th notes on the hi-hat there.
He's feeding the fire. Coprophenomenon. He's a phenomenon.
I like the he, she, there, we're the best, how we kind of rotate on that. We try and find the positivity within that condition that we're experiencing. I think it's charming. I'm really sort of satisfied with that. I think it's very well done. Really impressed. I think it's great to kind of know what the song is about almost instantly, just so that you can kind of hear more of the story, the furthering, the context as we go along. And with that, with an established motif, like with the guitar, bass, drums, and the occasional synth in those bridge parts for a bit of kind of epic sort of momentum, it's a fun ride. But welcome to the conclusion of my review of this track from an act named Bernd Bridges titled Coprophenomenon, aka TikTik. Now, what do I think this track is about? I think it's about someone who has, been suffering from Tourette's, but the way that they phrase it within this, it's made them strong and they're making the most out of life. And it's almost like they're looking at what they're kind of having to deal with and go, you know what? No, I am at the top of my game. It's the best. I am managing to sort of do what I can. I'm a techie. I'm traveling. I'm successful. And I have to admit, I think that's something that's really inspiring to hear about, like, genuinely. I can't imagine what it would be like to have Tourette's. I think you'd have to have Tourette's to know that. I cannot imagine it would make things particularly easy. And for someone to hear someone's story about how they've grown up, how they've developed, how their career has gone, where they're kind of moved and stuff like that, and the place they're currently at, it's sensational. So I'm appreciative of hearing the story from Bernd Bridges. And it's worth noting that I actually have listened to these guys before. I've listened to their track titled The Girl Behind the Mask before, and I enjoyed my time with that one, and I have enjoyed my time with this track too. I think I actually prefer this one. Part of why I prefer it is because the vocals in this one, they're just so easy to remember. The hook line from the TikTik instantly, with Tourette's it's the best. They kind of coach you and sort of help you to get into their own headspace to sort of understand the position. And then from there, the verses kind of further explain things and you're led on that story with them. And it's very intimate and personal and personable. And I appreciate the fact that we varied our vocal melodies, had a good sort of control over our vocal technique as well. We sung comfortably within our range there. It was interesting to, hear that sort of like emotional range going between the verse parts to the bridge. We allowed a bit more sort of space for our words to linger. And then with, the Tourette's it's the best part, we kind of sort of start pumping ourselves up for the chorus, for the TikTik part kind of getting stuck in your head as well. I think it's great to approach these different parts in a way that makes each of them sort of distinct, and ultimately it made the transition throughout this track very seamless. The song went by very, very quickly. Part of that was because the track was 3 minutes 37, and we might have had like backing vocals and extra parts, but the main vocal leads was all we needed alongside the guitar, bass, drum, and occasional synth parts that we had, with different verse and chorus bits, some instrumentals. So like we came in immediately with the vocals. I don't think there was any sort of like filler at the beginning. There was no intro chorus. It was just straight to the point. And I got to admire that. Sometimes you get musicians and they'll have like 30 seconds of like they're playing their best instruments, but it can sort of like leave the listener, especially if they've got some sort of like time deficit or they're really wanting that dopamine hit. If you don't get to the point straight away, the listener's like, what is this about? How do I connect with this? And Bernd Bridges, they smashed it out of the park immediately. So well done. Yeah, the structuring was tight. The transitions between sections were seamless. The instruments themselves, we had the drums, the bass, guitar, and the synths. The guitars were nice and bright and had a nice sheen to them. The chords that were strummed there were relatively subtle. They weren't too overpowering or over the top, but they had enough energy in them to kind of glisten in the mid-range there and provide a nice sort of warmth in there that I think works well with the tone that we were trying to deliver with the lyrics. We also allowed space there and variations with the way we played our guitar parts so that things were not too sort of constant, even though there was quite a similar sort of intensity with the dynamic range and stuff like that throughout. I appreciate that were done differently. The lead guitar parts there, we had different sort of like cool and responding guitar leads to the vocals there and then in the chorus parts. And then we also had some extra kind of leads on top, I think, that kind of nestled and helped to sort of like meld everything as like a together. It was very intricate with the guitar layering. We were clearly knowledgeable about both how to play the guitar and how to get it to sort of niche well with the vocals, as well as with the synth sections that happened in the bridge part, which highlighted some of the triad notes there, were nice and elegant, offered kind of a feel similar to songs like Van Halen's Jump, for example. I think the synth sound was very close to that, and I kind of like how it kind of gets you kind of ready for anything, it gets you ready for like, I think for more than anything, it kind of reminds me of like a live event of the 80s and like sense of hope and optimism and stuff like that I get with a lot of music from that period. And I think with, again, the subject matter, just even this choice of synth tone sells it. I like that the synth isn't overdone either. It's just a little bit of extra kind of resonance in mid to highs to kind of make things seem a bit bigger and add a bit more kind of heft to it before you get into that hook line and you're sort of stuck in there. With the bass lines typically projecting around that lower to mid range there with the root notes, I think they were handled really well. They complemented the guitar parts excellently and were a nice sort of sense of energy in that low to mid range there. And with the drums being relatively, I mean, there was like a nice sort of like, how do I describe it? Like an anthem, like yeah, I'd say they were anthemic. I think that like we had a sort of an 8th note groove that we were going with a lot of the drum parts there. We did have some really sort of subtle 16th note kind of hi-hat grooves in the interlude there before the final chorus. We had a sort of a firm grasp of where to put those kicks and those snares in a way that kept the song pushing forward, but not, again, overpowering the melodic and harmonic elements in there. The drums played with consistent sense of dynamics, and even though we did come down on some bits which allowed for that dynamic range, we never allowed things to sort of slow down too much to a point where we were kind of sitting there thinking about the song's themes for too long. Again, there was that sense of pace that I sort of discussed earlier, with the intricacy of the guitar parts there, with the bass kind of driving us along, and again the synth building us up. You had like a lot of different components there. Despite the track not being sort of too massively instrumentally layered, it's just those parts did exactly what they needed to do in order to make it an interesting and engaging experience. The theme itself, I think, was uplifting and motivating, and when you couple the use of the major and minors with a lack of complexity harmonically in the extensions or anything like that, we had a driving drum beat that it continued to propel us forward, and that energy there with a consistency and a chemistry between a lot of the other, and like the bass and guitar parts, for example. We didn't have any kind of weird or off-putting notes or any sort of like really weird sort of tension or drama parts. At the most, there might have been some suspended intervals or something like that kind of glowed there and add a sense of regality to them. Everything there, within the theme matched, again, that wanting to move forward. Even if there was some sadness in the lyrics, the music told us that everything was going to be okay and that we should still be looking at what we managed to accomplish and to be proud of ourselves. So I think when I think of the main sort of chord progressions, the ideas we had musically and compositionally, they reflect the lyrics well, and the performance itself outside of it was great, and there was not a note out of place. The studio recording, mixing, and mastering was fantastic as well. I really appreciated the effort into making sure that the vocals were nice and clear in the mix, that the guitars, despite the different layers and different guitar tones and stuff, because they weren't all the same, they're like 2 or 3 different guitar parts recorded, if I think, different tones, and different parts of the stereo field with the bass and drums and synths. They all had a place there, and they were all wonderfully niched within the frequency spectrum. And the song was nice and wide in the stereo field. Like it wasn't too wild and all over the place. Like there wasn't a whole heap of kind of shifting in the left and right cans, but it was enough to make it seem like a really full sort of like you got the most bang for your buck out of it. And there was a lot of and again, like with the focus on the mid to high range with a lot of those string instruments, they had this wonderful warm glow to it. There was dynamic range to it, which means that it wasn't the same last all the time, which is great. Having things come down even in a track which is not outside the 2 to 4 minute sweet spot, that's still very welcome, because even though we had variations in the chord progressions and stuff like that, if everything's the same loudness all the time, you can just kind of tune off a little bit, but no, we didn't have that issue, and it was nice and loud without pumping, so the bus compression limiting was handled. I mean, effectively, this is my review of this track from an act named Bernd Bridges, titled Coprophenomenon, aka TikTik, and hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, please go show us some love via their various social medias and their website, and I'm sure this will be on sort of digital streaming platforms soon. And stay cool and stay safe, and please remember to support your local musicians and artists at this point in time, as he had to help more than ever. Thought crazy stuff going on. Just before I go, I think this is actually released on March the 22nd, so this video should be out after that date, so you can go check it out if you want via the links in the description, and I'll catch you in the next review. Spiderhands out.